And that's really worth thinking about, because you got to ask yourself, for example, why are you calm and secure in this class? What are the preconditions for you not being afraid here? So think about it. Why are you not afraid? Well, the floor is solid. That's a good one. The roof is probably not going to collapse. Why? Well, it's actually because you could rely on the structural engineers who built the building. That's kind of interesting. Why? You know, in the Soviet Union, they used to make cinder block buildings out of old radioactive waste. And then, of course, they'd put way too much sand in them so that if the earth went like this once, it'd be like collapse. And so the typical Soviet couldn't be reasonably fearless in this room because the walls were radioactive, and if the earth moved a little bit, the whole thing would collapse. And so part of the reason that you can sit in here without fear is because the system that regulates our construction enterprise is actually not very corrupt. So that's pretty cool. So, you know, so when you think about that, that means that one of the preconditions for your relative fearlessness is your implicit belief that the builders who built this building can be trusted. And that's really unlikely. You know, if you look around the world, how many countries are there that aren't corrupt? I mean, you know, the West is corrupt too, there's no doubt about it, but compared to a really corrupt place, you know, we don't even register as corrupt. So what else? Well, look at the people around you, you know. You guys look a lot the same, all things considered. You know, none of you have painted your face in rainbow colors, and you know, you're not decorated with ostrich feathers, and you're not wearing some outlandish Victorian costume, and none of you are stark naked, and most of you aren't foaming at the mouth, and you know, like fundamentally, you're in a uniform. And there's some variation of the uniform allowed, but not much. How many of you are wearing jeans? Right, it's like 50% of you. Why are you wearing jeans? It's so other primates don't think you're insane. That's why. I'm telling you, it's a big part of it. It's acceptable. And so most of you are wearing clean jeans, I presume. Or they're clean enough anyway, so that if they're not clean, it's not detectable, which is another sign that you're not completely insane, right? And so you're manifesting markers like mad that you're basically a normal primate, and that you live in accordance with a set of well understood implicit rules, and that for the purposes of this set of interactions, you're not going to violate them. So everybody can come in here, like the terrified primates they are at the first class, and they can look around, they see the desks are all in order, so that means order prevails here. The desks all face this way, so it's a standard lecture theater, you know what's going to happen here. People walk in, they all sit properly in their tables, most of them don't talk, which is another rule. How many of you are sitting in the same chair that you sat in last week? Right, and you know, pretty soon you're going to figure out which chair is yours, and then if someone comes in here and sits in your chair, you're going to think, that person's in my chair. And you know, the reason for that is you're trying to stabilize the environment. You've learned that that chair is safe, and so are the people around you, and so now you feel kind of comfortable in that chair. You sort of think it's your chair. And so we do everything we can to structure the environment so that signals that you're safe are radiating at you like mad. And that way you can be calm enough, despite the fact that you're a crazy chimpanzee, you can be calm enough to sit here and not be distracted by fundamental motivational systems that are out of control, and maybe listen and attend. And like, you just think about how much work, just think about it, how much work went into building this room for you to sit in. You know, it's like there have been universities for about 1,000 years. So there's a 1,000-year conceptual history of the university. That's one of the preconditions. And then we had to figure out how to make all this stuff, and then people actually had to put it together, and then you all had to be socialized for like 19 years so that you could sit here relatively quietly while you're listening to a lecture. And you know, we had to build the idea of the university into our culture, and you know, somebody's got to keep the lights on and look at this technology that works. It's like there are people out there just slaving themselves to death to make sure that this little box that you're sitting in is sufficiently predictable so that you don't have to be terrified. It's like, good for them, you know? And it's all happening so invisibly that, you know, you're probably irritated because your internet connection doesn't work that well or something like that, you know? So it's really, really useful to know that the idea that your normal state is calm and well regulated is highly debatable. It's highly debatable. I would say there's very limited preconditions under which you are going to feel safe. And then I would also say you're highly motivated to maintain those conditions, and you're also highly motivated not to go somewhere where those conditions don't apply. Right? You're just not going to do it. Because that's a different kind of place. And I would say that place is chaos. The place where the rules do not apply, that's chaos. And it's a real place. That's unexplored territory. And you're hardwired at an instinctual level to deal with unexpected exposure to unexplored territory. And you do that by going like this. It's a startle and fear. You're frozen. And the reason for that is you're a prey animal. And you have subcircuits in you that are millions of years old that are there to protect you from becoming prey. And that could be prey of other people, that's for sure. But it could be prey of anything that would like to eat you, you know. And part of the reason, you might understand, is that there aren't that many large predators around anymore. You know, it's part of the human despoilation of the planet is that mostly people don't like having their children eaten by tigers. You know, so, and it's not because there's something wrong with us, it's because that's actually a rather unpleasant experience. And so, if you could have a tiger around or not have one, you might well choose not to have one, especially if you have some, you know, certain amount of love for your children, who, although lovable, also happen to be delicious. Right, so, well, okay, so it's a proposition I want to undermine, because I want to start with the presupposition that fundamentally, as a biological creature, you're like a wild animal, and you're like a prey animal. Things might happen to you, and you're ready for them. And then what we do with society is we construct up an edifice that has multi-levels. Some of it's actually instantiated, right? And the rest of it is cultural and ritual and behavioral, so that you don't have to be a prey animal. You can be relatively calm and assured that nothing terrible is going to happen to you in the next 10 seconds. And that's worth fighting for. So, all right, that's probably good enough.